Hey bud. Hey, thanks for agreeing to solder some more things together. This time we're making thermometers basically. Just a little thermistor tied to an Arduino. And the way the thermistor works is it reads a resistance and calculates the temperature based on that resistance. So it's pretty straightforward setup. I've got all the pieces parts here and I'll walk you through how I put them together. And I have also included a tester thing so you can check to see that the LEDs are correct before you try it. Anyway, here we go. Here we have all the parts. Some of them you probably already have. You got solder from before. You might need a little electric tape. Your pliers and wire cutters and all that stuff. Your safety glasses, which can also be magnifying glasses. What we're going to use is these things again to go in the end of the Arduino so that we can plug the cable into it. And I'm hoping you still have a cable. I'm going to include one just in case you don't. We're also going to use these little wire connector things here to connect the different parts together. This is the thermistor here. It's a temperature sensitive resistor, so at different temperatures it gives a different resistance. This is a resistor here that helps it figure out what the resistance really ought to be. And here's our display that we're going to use to show the temperature. Here's what you're ultimately going to create, something like this. Got the thermistor down here on the end on one of these wire connectors, plugged into another wire connector which connects up to the Arduino. This one's really similar and I'm going to send it along so you can test yours. Notice this one has a little clip that you can plug the 7-segment display into. I'm going to want you to ultimately solder those displays onto the board, but this is a good way to test the display after you've bent the pins to make sure it fits okay and also to make sure it works okay. It also gives you a chance to test your thermistor. Sometimes these thermistors are bad or they overheat when you're soldering them, and that's why I've included a couple extras. So if the reading doesn't read quite what the room temperature is, go ahead and throw that thermistor away and solder up another one. Alright, let's get started. Alright, we're going to start by building the thermistor module. The thermistor is pretty straightforward, but it has 3 leads ultimately. The ground, the positive, and then the reading, which is we're going to use this yellow cable for that. So we need to use the resistor and the thermistor to turn into 3 leads to go into the connector. So here's what I want you to do. Take one of these clips and we're going to keep the yellow, red, and black wires on there, but cut off this other extension. And when you cut the other extension off, cut these at different lengths so that there's no way these wires can touch each other after they're cut off. After cutting them off, put them up against the other ones and run a piece of tape over them, just so that they don't touch anything or short out accidentally. Just like that. So with this part here, see how the yellow wire, the red wire, and the black wire are in there? We ultimately want to have the thermistor to hit the yellow wire and the black wire, like that. We're also going to need to have the red wire tied into this resistor, which is also going to be tied into the thermistor. So kind of like that. And here's how I do that. First off, I take the thermistor and I pull a piece apart like that. Then I take the resistor and put it right up alongside there, like that. Then I wrap the resistor leg around the thermistor leg, like this. I'll use the pliers to get it tight, but then I'm going to have the 3 legs just like that, the way I want them. So after you trim those leads up and wrap it around there, it should look kind of like this. Now what I'm going to do is just put a little solder on that part right there and then stick it in the clip. I found this fly tying tool to be really handy at holding the things that I'm trying to solder. So now just putting a little bit of solder on this here will keep those pieces together and make a good electric connection. We want to plug this in to the wires and the wire clip that you already set up. After you get in there, make sure the wires aren't touching anything, then put a little piece of tape around it. Alright, the next step is to take the Arduino and get it set up for the power. We're going to use another one of these clips so that we can apply power to the Arduino with a 9-volt battery, and so that we can plug the thermistor into this clip right here. Alright? Alright. To do that, first we need to separate this power line from the clip so that when we put a 9-volt battery on there, the 9 volts don't go to the clip. So find a spot close to the end, use your wire cutters, and cut that red wire. While you keep that red wire separate, put a little piece of tape around that so that it doesn't touch anything else. Okay? So now we have the red, black, and yellow separate, and the red and black with the red one cut. So far so good? Okay. Now, these red, black, and yellow ones are going to be attached directly to the Arduino. So we don't need this part on there. So let's go ahead and cut that off too. And if you can leave about a ½ inch here, we might be able to use that piece again sometime. So with these wires cut, stripped, and bent over, they're ready to go in the Arduino. Make sure when you're looking at the Arduino, you can tell where all the pins are. You'll notice down here, there's a pin for VCC, and a pin for ground, and in the middle here, you have to look at the other side to see what that pin is. There's the A4 and A5. So after you got that soldered in place, you see the yellow goes into the A5. The red that's on the same with the yellow goes into the VCC. The ground goes into the ground, and the red that's separate goes into the one marked raw. Alright? Now you're ready to put the rest of the things on the Arduino. We're going to want to put these on so we can program the Arduino. So you want to cut a piece off of the long string that fits just right in here. Just enough in there. And then solder those in place. If we solder them straight up and down like that, it'll be real easy to get the cable on there to program the Arduino. I always solder one in first. And then make sure that the pins are straight. I don't like that smoke, so a lot of times I'll just plug my nose with something. Alright, the next part can be a little tricky. We're going to take this 7-segment display, and we want to plug it in with all these wires straight into the Arduino. First thing you got to know is these 4 dots across here represent the bottom, so this is upside down. This is how it's going to go on the Arduino. The next thing is, when it goes on the Arduino, it's going to fit in the pins upside right like this. So with the 4 decimal points across the bottom, this end will go up against the bracket there. Now you'll notice that these pins are too narrow to fit in the holes. So it would be easiest just to bend these pins. And after we bend these pins, it'll just look like this. Those wires are bent out a little bit. And then those wires, again with the 4 across the bottom, will fit right inside these pinholes. Just like that. And after they fit in there, then we'll be able to solder it up just where it is. Just like that. Now the one thing to notice is, on the top, this one pin needs to get pulled over to the side, because it doesn't go in that hole, it goes in the next one over. Okay? Otherwise, they reach all the way down to the end. And you ought to be able to see that with a sample too. So to get those pins to bend on the 7-segment display, I've included this part here. This can be used for a lot of things, but it's also pretty slick for giving you a handle to bend these pins. So what you're going to do is put all the pins in there, and bend them over. It's better to bend them all at once. And I found that if you bend one side all the way, and then bend the other side all the way, it's a lot easier. So bend them flat, then go back to one side, put this back on till it's just about to where, right on the edge, and then bend them back up again. That'll put just enough of a kink in there so that it'll fit on the Arduino. Do it to both sides so you get a good kink in both of them. And then the important thing is to find the top. Make sure those dots are on the bottom. And the pin on the top on this side needs to get bent over a little bit. So I just put this in here and pull it over a little. By doing all that, these pins ought to line up nicely on the Arduino. Now I've sent you this sample setup so that you could take your 7-segment display after you've bent all those pins and plug it in there and make sure it works before you solder everything up. So when you plug it in, all the pins are going to come all the way out to this edge here on the bottom, and on the top they're all out to the edge, but the top one needs to be over 1. So see how that one goes over that way? Just like that. And then push them in there. That'll help with the bend too. So, with them all in there, in your tester, and with your thermistor on there now, you can plug it in and see if that works. When you plug it into the computer, looking at this plug thing here, it's got a black wire on the top and a green wire on the bottom. And if you notice on the Arduino, there's a word black at the top and green at the bottom. So that helps you line that up. The first time you plug it in, it should look like that. This should come out to about room temperature. 73.9 sounds about right. And if you want to check it, find the thermistor, hold on to it with your hand, and since your body is warmer, you should notice the temperature go up. When you know that works, both your thermistor and the 7-segment display, go ahead, take the 7-segment display off, put it on the Arduino that you just set up, and solder it together. When I solder these, I like to solder one and make sure it all holds together. Then I can put it in a clip and solder all the rest. And if you don't like that smoke, you can plug your nose with something too. So after you soldered up, all you have to do is program it, and it's what? Oh, yeah. Plug your nose with whatever you want. And then just program it and it'll be ready to go. Thanks for helping out. See you later.